What happens when telling the truth becomes a death sentence? In Gaza, journalism itself is under fire, literally. On Monday, Israeli forces bombed the Nasser Medical Complex in Khan Younis.
يا احمد احمد يسار يسار يا الله افتح مجال تعال افتح مجال طلع ما حد يقول من عندك.
It was a double tap strike, one missile and then another moments later as rescuers and colleagues rushed in. 21 people were killed, among them 5 Palestinian journalists. They included Al Jazeera photographer Mohammed Salama, Reuters cameraman Hussam al-Masri, Maryam Abu Daka, who contributed to AP and the Independent Arabic, journalist Muaz Abu Taha, Ahmed Abu Aziz of Quds Feed Network, who later died of his wounds. Hours later, another journalist, Hassan Dohan, who was killed in a separate Israeli strike in Khan Younis. That makes 6 journalists killed in a single day. Reuters' live feed from the hospital run by al-Masri cut off the exact moment the first missile hit. Al Jazeera condemned the strike as a clear intent to bury the truth. Behind these headlines are lives cut short. Salama was planning to marry fellow journalist Hala Asfour once a ceasefire was reached. Abu Daka leaves behind a 12-year-old son who had been evacuated earlier in the war. AP editor Abby Sewell called her a true hero like all of her Palestinian colleagues in Gaza. This was not an isolated attack. Just 2 weeks earlier, Al Jazeera correspondent Anas al-Sharif was killed alongside 4 of his colleagues in front of Gaza City's Al-Shifa hospital. Israel admitted it directly targeted him. Journalists in Gaza are forced to make hospitals as makeshift newsrooms, one of the few places with power and internet left. That's also why they have become prime targets. Al Jazeera's Hind Khotari, reporting from a hospital herself, asked, "How many times are we going to continue reporting on the killing of our colleagues?" Since October 2023, Israel has killed between 180 and nearly 270 journalists. The Gaza government media officer says over 240 have been killed. The Committee to Protect Journalists confirms at least 192 deaths. Some tallies list as many as 274 killed, almost all of them Palestinian. The killings begin immediately. Over 40 journalists were killed in October 2023 alone. By July 2024, the death toll had passed 160. By August 2025, after nearly 2 years of war, the rate averages 13 to 14 journalists killed every month. No other conflict in modern history has recorded such a high toll on the press. Amnesty International says that no conflict has seen more journalists killed than Israel's genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. Israel acknowledged striking near Nasser Hospital but claimed it does not target journalists.
Today, IDF troops carried out a strike in the area of Nasser Hospital in Khan Younis. We are aware of reports that harm was caused to civilians, including journalists. I would like to be clear from the start. The IDF does not intentionally target civilians. The IDF makes every effort to mitigate harm to civilians while ensuring the safety of our troops. Any incident that raises concern in this regard is addressed by the relevant mechanisms in the IDF. We are operating in an extremely complex reality. Hamas terrorists deliberately use civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, as shields. They have even operated from the Nasser hospital itself. Hamas began this war, created impossible fighting conditions, and is preventing its end by still holding 50 of our hostages. Having said that, as a professional military committed to international law, we are obligated to investigate our operations thoroughly and professionally. The Chief of the General Staff has instructed that an inquiry be conducted immediately to understand the circumstances of what happened and how it happened. Reporting from an active war zone carries immense risk, especially in a war with a terrorist organization such as Hamas, who cynically hides behind the civilian population. As always, we will present our findings as transparently as possible. We regret any harm to uninvolved individuals and are committed to continue fighting Hamas while taking all the necessary precautions.
Later, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called it a tragic mishap. But Israel's so-called investigation into its own forces rarely lead to charges or accountability. Critics say Israel has learned it can act without consequence. Journalists, medics, and aid workers are all being killed, while governments like the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, and France continue to back Israel militarily and politically. Since October 2023, more than 62,000 Palestinians have been killed, over half of them women and children.
The mounting humanitarian crisis and the overall catastrophe created on the Gaza Strip and Israel's use of starvation as a weapon of war. And we all know that this kind of starvation should never be present in this day and age, and it is a crime of war. Today we also take note of the report coming out from the UN confirming the existence of famine in the Gaza Strip, and it confirms the reality the Gazans are living in the devastated Strip. Today, more than 250 Palestinians have lost their lives because of starvation. And today, journalists, your colleagues, we have 240 of your colleagues who have been brutally killed in Gaza. And that number exceeds the number of journalists killed in World War II and onwards, in all the wars in modern history. Today, 80% of Gaza is in shambles, and we will only know the extent of devastation, the extent of the killing and the injuries once we are able to assess on the ground. Today, the numbers stand at 62,000 killings, over 150,000 injuries, but God only knows the number of those still under the rubble and those who are still missing.
And nearly 270 journalists, including reporters, cameramen, and photographers, have been silenced while trying to show the world what's happening in the occupied enclave. For more, subscribe to DawnNews English.